got a great film to play, you know.
Hello?
Have you ever snogged a lady?
We had a technical problem.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on there.
Can I swear? Shit!
Oh, yeah.
Radio. It's an industry that most people listening will love or love to hate. The people who get into radio do it for passion and money, but mainly passion. Now, there's plenty of podcasts that cover the serious stuff, like who's your radio hero, how did you get your first break, what's the best playout system. Crunch and Roll does it a bit differently, though. My name is John Fox. You can call me Foxy. I've done breakfast shows across the UK for many years and been on commercial and more recently the BBC. In each episode, I'll be probing my esteemed guest on the really important questions that fellow professionals want to know, like what song have you played so much now that you can't hear without smashing up the radio, or have you ever made an idiot of yourself in front of a client? And of course, the hotly contested question of who's the worst boss they've ever had to endure. So turn up the feel good and get ready for some hits and memories with your Crunch and Roll. And today's guest is a guy that I was very fortunate enough to work alongside at BRMB a few years back. And I think prior to arriving in Birmingham, I had the same impression that some have of this man, that he could be, how should I put it, difficult. Turns out he's not. Fairly private guy. Really interesting, and I would say a true legend, an inspiration to me. And you're about to hear some amazing stories. The time that he got upset watching himself on the news, and how he got fired 6 times in a week, and how he ended up with that name, Robin Banks. Just to warn you, this is a little bit sweary.
Oh, yeah.
How are you, Robin?
Oh, I'm all right, buddy. I'm really good. I'm enjoying life. Best move I ever made out here. Mate, all fucking brilliant. I should have done this sooner.
Listen, Robin, we're going to get on to you mentioned a place there whilst we were just getting the levels correct, Atlantic 252. I'm doubly excited.
Hang on a minute. Have we started?
We've started, mate. There's no big...
What?
Robin.
Dude, where's the intro?
We've already done the intro, and you're not on it. So I just go, here's Robin Banks. And you go, hey, Foxy, how are you? And then
In your face.
but then we're off. Do you know what I mean? All right.
Yeah.
Now, Robin, you're Irish.
I am Irish, yeah. I speak a cúpla focail Gaelga, agus gearme dolíródi amach, agus ni higame Gaelga gamach.
I didn't know you were Irish.
I am. I was born in Ireland. I was born in Kilkenny. And my parents are English, bless them. And I lived about 10 miles outside of the city. So when I went back home, they actually never let me have an Irish accent. So I have an English accent. My brother, on the other hand, if you spoke to him, he speaks like that. He lives in Ireland, down in Limerick, and this is what he talks like. So when you put me and him together, we kind of have got similarities in looks, but we sound completely different.
And where was the fascination? Did you have a fascination for radio, or did you just fall into it?
Dude, well, I think one of my earliest memories was, I think I must have been about 6 or 7, and in Ireland at 6 o'clock, just before the main news, they had what was called the news for the deaf, where they used to split the screen in 2, and on the bottom half used to be the auto cue. And then the newsreader was on the top half. So I used to sit and stand there and pretend to read the news and blah, 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 blah. So I've always, I think I look back on my broadcasting career and think, that's where it started, in my front room in Kilkenny, reading the news for the deaf on the RTE.
Okay, so... we're kind of lost, if I'm being honest. We've looked at your Wikipedia, right? We've looked
hello.
at,
all right.
Yeah, and so you didn't start at KISS 100, did you?
No, I started when I was about 13 years old. There was a friend of mine called Richard Murphy, and he wanted to enter a competition on a radio station. And it was called AMS, and it was literally about a minute's walk from the school, the CBS Kilkenny school that I went to. So I said, I'll come down with you. So I walked down with Richard, and the guy who was presenting at the time was also the receptionist. He was the only guy there. And he said to me, he goes, wow, he said, if you could do that on the radio, you'd be great. And I said, well, how do I do that? And he said, go home and make a demo tape. Now, I don't know what a demo tape is, but we all know now what a demo is. So I went home, and do you remember those old play and record cassette tape things?
Yeah.
So I remember sitting on my bed just talking absolute rubbish. And I gave it to him the next day, and I was on the radio that Friday. And it was a Friday night, and I had paper with me of things I was going to say. I mean, I was rubbish, John. I was just, it was just embarrassing. And of course, at 13 years old, I thought I was the best thing ever. And I thought, this is brilliant. But little did I know, I mean, it's a pirate radio station. It was a Friday night. It was back in the day. Everybody wanted to go out on a Friday night. They needed somebody to do that 7 o'clock show. So that's how I started. I had one show which went on to 2 shows a week on AMS, which was a pirate radio station, and then I got a job on the local radio station, Radio Kilkenny, and from Radio Kilkenny I went out to the Voice of Peace in Israel, in international waters in the Mediterranean. From then
Hang on,
what?
Robin. What is the Voice of Peace?
The Voice of Peace is was one of the last true pirate radio stations. So it was in the Mediterranean. It was like the Ross Revenge. It was, like Radio London, Laser 558. It broadcast pop music, of which there was no market, to Israel and the Middle East on AM and FM. Its whole thing was peace. It was peace between the Arabs and the Jews, wanting to bring peace to the Middle East. And it was run by a guy called A.B. Nathan, who passed on a good few years ago. And he's a bit of a legend in the Middle East for trying to bring the Arabs and the Jews together.
Wow.
I know.
Incredible. And
yeah.
Why did they hire crazy Robin Banks to go out there and try and bring people together?
I wasn't crazy Robin Banks at the time. I was some kid from Ireland trying to make it in this dirty business called radio. Once again, it was that you had 6-month stints on board. And a friend of mine in Ireland went out to the Voice of Peace, a guy called Chris. And, it was, I thought, oh my God, this guy's a legend. He's gone out. And we used to write to each other, and he wrote to me. And he said to me, he goes, oh my God, this is amazing. He said, the studios are like Kiss in Los Angeles. And I mean, he goes, I've got my own cabin. There's all this going on. It's amazing. You've got a bar. You've got a TV room with this massive TV. I mean, he made it sound brilliant. Anyway, I rang the offices of the Voice of Peace from my house. And a guy who was the station manager called Reuven. Hey, he used to speak like this. Hey, it's Reuven. And he said, have you got a demo tape? And I went, yes, I do. He went, play it for me down the phone. So I did. And he said, when can you come out here? And I said, well, next week. And he goes, okay, I'll buy you a ticket. So I then proceeded to go, as a true Irishman, John, I went on the bus from Dublin to London to get the aeroplane down to the Middle East. So, and mate, I arrived in Tel Aviv. We went to the Astor Hotel, which was our hotel, room 207, and met a guy called Kenny Page, who was an absolute legend in Scottish radio. And we got the tender out to the Voice of Peace. And as we're going out, there's a massive ship and we're heading towards it. And I'm going, holy shit. I said, is that it? I mean, John, it was massive. It was like, a Stena Sea Link lines there. And we're going, and he goes, no, that's not it. What is it? Fuck me. It was a fucking leaky, rusty piece of absolute tin can shit. And I remember climbing on. Now, remember, Chris, right, my buddy from Kilkenny, didn't know I was coming. So I get on this ship, and immediately I smell diesel, right? There's diesel everywhere. And I go down to see Chris, because you want to go see Chris? And I went, yeah, all right. So I remember his face. Holy shit. I remember. And I went, I thought you told me it was like Kiss in LA. It's fucking nothing like it. They had these old pop mixers, these old fucking pop, which actually, the pop mixers were incredible. We had SL1210 turntables. So they did not, in my 6 months there, they did not skip once. Wow. I know, but that was amazing. So we were on the air for, we did 4 hours in the morning, a few hours in the afternoon. I did the classical music show on that radio station. So I used to, you'd get bored. We were literally on that ship and doing shows. So one of my links in the classical music program was, there is Alan Bastard with the Dublin Symphony Orchestra. It'd be fine. Now, classical music goes on for 25, 30-minute movements. Yeah. So that would go out, obviously, on PGM1. So program 1 on this little desk, this analog desk. Now, as that was going out, what I used to do is I used to flick one of the CD players or one of the decks to PGM2 and crank, like, some rock music, some early Led Zeppelin, Alchemy Live, whatever. And little did I know that PGM2 actually bled over into PGM1. So this classical music program was so over the top of it was live rendition of Sultans of Swing. Oh mate, we had lots of stories from there.
Wow.
Cunty,
we apologise, sir.
We just play records till 8, 9. When do we finish?
I'm not drunk. I've had a couple of drinks. I'm not drunk.
Oh, yeah.
And then where? Where did he move next then, Robin?
And then, my 6 month stint was up there. And then I went and worked for, have you heard of Chris Carey?
Nope.
Well, Chris Carey was the guy who basically revolutionised radio in Ireland. He brought in hot hits to Ireland, Radio Nova. So all the radio stations, they just played the hits. So that was the first station in the UK and Ireland that actually played the hits. Irish radio, back then in the 80s, was well ahead of UK radio, well ahead. So Chris Carey, at that time we're up to about 93, 94 now, had Radio Nova in Camberley in Surrey. So I went over and worked at Radio Nova, where Chris Carey has, if you research Chris Carey, and people listening to this podcast will go, oh my God, Chris Carey. I was fired by Chris Carey 6 times in my first week. First few times, it was like, I was like, geez, what am I going to do? And the receptionist, don't worry, he does that. One day, classic story, I was there, he got so angry, he fired this guy, right, in reception. He goes, and you get out, you don't work for me anymore. He goes, mate, I'm a delivery guy, I'm just delivering this package. Fucking firing everybody. Jesus. So from Radio Nova, I remember the receptionist going, there's a phone call for you. And I pick it up. Now, I'd been sending demo tapes out to all the big stations in the UK, and I get this call, and hello. I'm like, hi. This is Paul Kavanagh here from Atlantic 252. I'm like, fuck off. Hang up, right? It's fucking... So anyway, rings back. He goes, if you don't believe me, call me 0035346, whatever the other number is for Atlantic. So I'm like, who the fuck, who's this? So I dial the number, receptionist, hello, Atlantic 252, best music. I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. So Paul says, when are you coming back to Ireland? And I go, well, look, are you offering me a job? You will come and see me. So I went back to Ireland, and I got a job on Atlantic 252, doing two days a week. A Tuesday, and I had a show on a Saturday. I had to be there for the Jocks meeting on a Tuesday. And the rest sort of snowballed from there.
Robin, forgive me. So, I don't want to give away the magic, but Robin Banks isn't your real name.
No, really? Do you know, very few people, John, let me tell you, very few people get it. Right, let me tell you a quick story. Paul Smith, the guy who was behind Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
I was at Paul Smith's house once and was sitting around his pool, fucking rock and roll. And he's a radio man. He loves radio. So he says to me, oh, you worked at Atlantic 252? I go, yeah. He goes, Robin, he said, gee, Dusty Roads. He says, joking. He said, what kind of stupid names are they? And then he looks at me and goes, at least you don't have one of those stupid names. I swear to you, very few people get it. And when they do eventually get it, you know, it's always, oh, do you get it? Do you go into the bar, Robin? But I've got credit cards now with Robin Banks on it.
Amazing.
So I go, no, it's my real name. And I pull out a credit card and it's got Robin Banks on it. They go, how'd you do that? I'm like, well, it's me. My buddy Dusty Rhodes, Dusty has officially changed his name to Dusty Rhodes. So his passport, all his IDs, credit cards, driving license, Dusty Rhodes.
Amazing. So is that where you got Robin Banks from? Was it during the Atlantic 252 days?
Yeah, because dude, let's face it. When you're doing, you know, when you're doing top 40 CHR radio with, you know, you got 6 seconds to do a link. You're 7 minutes past the hour. Link is best music, less talk, Atlantic 252. This is Robin Banks. You know, Christian Richardson is a bit of a mouthful. That's half my time gone.
Did you pick it yourself, or did somebody pick it for you?
It was a sort of Paul Kavanagh was the one that kind of came up with the silly names.
It's
that
great.
Worked,
I think it's great. It was a genius idea because we're all still talking about it now.
We're all, yeah, and you know, a few years ago, I thought of going back to my real name on the radio, and a well-known radio consultant said to me, he said, do you know what? He said, Robin Banks is a brand. He said, you can't. He said, Robin Banks, he said, it doesn't matter what it is. You've built up a brand from Atlantic, from Virgin, and still people, I'm out in Oman in the Middle East. I still get messages from expats who have just arrived here going, oh my God, Robin Banks, I remember you on Atlantic 252. And, you know, so he was right. I remember having a conversation with Bam Bam at Kiss 100. We were all doing top 40 radio, 1624, male and female, you know, at the time of me and Bam on Kiss 100. We owned London. And Bam was just an amazing breakfast show he had. There was nothing like it on the dial, nothing like it at all. I remember having the conversation with Bam saying, mate, you're going to have to change your name at some time because, you know, 30, 40, 50-year-olds ain't going to want to listen to Bam Bam. And I think he's now on Virgin as just Bam, which is sort of a bit more grown up, isn't it?
Yeah. You mentioned Kiss 100, and that for me. So I'd started working at Viking, my hometown station, and little old Viking.
Mate, I was offered a job at Viking.
Were you?
I was offered a job at Viking to be the programmer of Viking Radio. And my interview, I swear to you, this is the complete and God's honest truth. My interview question was, do you like the smell of fish?
And your answer was?
Well, mate, my answer was, why the hell would you make me work? I mean, I was at Kiss 100, you know, I was on some pretty good money. And I was working, inverted commas, 4 hours a day. Why the hell would I move to Hull and work, you know, triple the amount of time for less money? Now, I should have done it, you know. I should have looked at the long-term game and long-term plan. Should have done it, but I didn't.
The magic of Kiss, whilst working for EMAP, was so strong. I mean, it was just... At your time, when you and Bam Bam were there, and Street Boy and all that, that was a huge radio station, wasn't it?
It was, mate. It was massive, and we knew, without sounding like a complete dick, we knew how to do radio. Bam knew what great radio was. Even so much so that I think when he went to Jack, I think there was a bit of audio from him that I heard when he berated his newsreader. And I kind of understood that because when you don't get the support, when you work with people who, when you're doing all the work and you have people who just don't do anything and don't care, it really affects you mentally. And to be on the radio, I mean, we're all bloody nuts. But, you know, Bam knew what he wanted and did an absolutely fantastic show. Him, Tim Shaw, are two of the most amazing broadcasters that I've ever worked with.
It's funny you should say that, because when people ask me that question, I say you and Tim Shaw.
Oh,
I generally do, though. I mean, you talk there about working hard. I remember, so when myself and Juliana went to BRMB, and we'll get onto that in a second, but we were doing Drive and you were doing the evening show.
Yeah.
And I remember I was at 210 FM just before that, and we got offered the gig, and I said to Juliana, who isn't as much of an anorak in the industry as I was, I remember saying, I said, Juliana, we have to go here, mate. I mean, BRMB is a heritage station, huge station.
Yeah.
And I said, Robin Banks and Tim Shaw are going to be there. And he was like, who? He was like, he didn't. Who? He was like, who? And I was like, mate, seriously, you've got to understand. Robin Banks, Kiss 100, amazing. Tim Shaw, Kerrang Breakfast, incredible. And so we're doing Drive. First show, we were awful. I mean, we were awful for 12 months. And
we were bad.
We were bad. And we didn't take any time off because we were just scared that somebody would find us out for not being decent, right? So anyway, I'm trying to get back to your hard work. And you were already in the office at 2:00 when we start our show to prepare for your show, which started at, I think it was 7. I mean, you work hard, don't you, Robin?
Do you know, the really crap thing about being a radio presenter is you have to work really hard to make it sound like there's no work gone into it at all.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, you need to make it sound like you just turn on that microphone and it all comes out. Let me tell you, it doesn't.
Do you know the one thing I was impressed with when I first met you? And actually, we'll get onto this story as well, because it was the second time I'd met you, but you were off your tits and couldn't remember the first time. When I met you... When I met you at Beer...
I've been clean and sober for 15 years.
Well done, mate.
15 years.
Well done. But the second time I met you, the BRMB studios were good. They were nice studios for what I was used to. You walked in with your own equipment. I was like, what's this geezer doing?
He did, didn't you? He's got his own... Well, the story behind that, I've got a Preco instant replay. Bam Bam, a gig, he used to have one, and he had one and showed me it, and I thought, I've got to buy one of them. And basically, it is, if you have sound effects, if you've got beds, if you spend time loading them onto a radio station hotkeys, and then when you leave, all the other jocks have got them, and you hear them on the radio. Now, I don't know whether you know this about me, John, but I've been let go from a few radio stations in my time. So I thought, do you know what? I thought, when I get fired again, I'll just go, yeah, all right, see ya. Which is actually what happened at BRMB. I went, all right, bye then. and I walked out. So it's always nice, that's my show. I can, if I needed to do an outside broadcast, I just take my my instant replay with me, plug it in, 2 XLRs, bang, and it's on a fader, and I've got my entire show. All the music, the backing music, the jingles, everything is loaded on there. I know exactly what each button does. So, just give me a mic and a transmitter or a link back to the studio, and I'm good to go. The amount of times I see people doing outside broadcast, and jeepers, there's we got to bring our beds. What should we do? Should we burn them onto CD? And I actually still have that. It is in my studio now. Currently, it's the most expensive bit of equipment that I don't use. I plug it in every morning.
I don't know why you got fired from Orion Media, but do you remember the time that they tried to change the playout system and it didn't work for any of us, and it annoyed you that much you ripped the studio door off?
No, that was not. No, you're getting two things mixed up. Okay. Now, this is why I get people go, oh, Robin Banks, don't work with him. I'll tell you why I ripped the studio door off. Now, there is a guy who used to work there who shall remain nameless. And he said he came to me and he said, Robin, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Now, I did a network show at night, which went out on BRMB, it went out on Wyvern, it went out on Beacon, and it went out on Mercia. Was there any other stations that we broadcast to?
No, I think you've got
that
them.
group owned?
Yeah, I think you got them.
I got them.
Yeah.
So we used to have to do what's called split links, right? So I would, before the show, I'd record something that was exclusively for Mercia, maybe promoting their breakfast show. I'd do the same for Beacon and the same for Wyvern. So I said to this dude, I went, look, I said, I tell you what you could do. I said, I'll give you the reads of these other stations, and if you load them into the Beacon, Wyvern, and Mercia, that would be amazing. So when I press the split link button, the one in Birmingham, because I'm on BRMB, I'm in BRMB Studios, I can't hear the other ones. I can't hear the other stations because they're too far away. They're not in our TSA. So when I press the button, the one in Birmingham goes out, the one in Coventry goes out, the Black Country goes out, and they all go out separately on separate transmitters. So he goes, yeah, I'll do that for you. So I gave them to him. So I get a message from somebody, I don't know, Mercia, going, no, it's the wrong reader's gone out. So it obviously hasn't been loaded. So I speak to this guy, and I go, look, mate, you haven't loaded them. He goes, oh, yeah, sorry about that. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, sorry. He said, I was really busy. I'm like, dude, you just need to tell me, and it'll be fine. He goes, yeah, won't happen again. It happened again. I ripped the fucking studio door off to go out and get to him. And I remember outside the studio, do you remember Tom Ross used to sit out there? Yeah. Now, I've never seen Tom Ross's face fucking upset, but it was upset when I ripped that studio door off when I realised that. And do you know what? This guy, and this is what I talk about when people go, oh, Robin Banks, he's it's because you haven't done your job. And the worst thing is, you came to me and said, is there anything I can do? And I went, yeah, all right, great. This will, and it's not a hard job. Just load it into the other radio station's playout system. You said you could do it, so that's why I ripped the studio door off, not because of the playout system. The playout system they wanted to get, jeepers, it was awful. Yeah, I mean, mind you, mate, every playout system it has its own foibles. Every playout system I've ever used is pretty bad in some way, shape, or form.
It was a technical problem. You heard something on air you shouldn't have done.
Oh, yeah. Robin, another story that you might remember. Do you remember when I was driving home and I was pulled over by the police and I had to get out the car and the officer took me to the back of my car where you and your co-presenter at the time, Theo the Greek, had stuck signs all over the back of my car saying, "Stop, car full of drugs." Do you remember that one, Robin?
I did not do that. I cannot, dude, seriously, did that happen to you?
Yes.
Did you have a car full of drugs?
No, I didn't, no, thankfully.
Jesus. It's things like that you just couldn't get away with now.
No, but these are the stories that I wanted to share on this podcast because, the on-air stuff, you are a quality presenter and I've got a lot of respect for what you do, but there's enough of that ass kissing. It's the funny stuff.
Can I tell you a really good story if you've got time?
Yeah, go on.
So one of my favourite radio stories is when I went up. I was on XFM in London, and Bobby Hayne, a guy called Bobby Hayne, used to be head of music at Virgin. He worked there. He went up to Scotland. He basically got a conglomerate together. They bought this radio station that went out across Glasgow, across the Central Belt, and across Edinburgh. Massive station, no audience at the time. It's called Beat 106. They flew me up. Bobby showed me around. He said, we want you to come up, do your thing. He said, come up, do your thing. I went, no, really? He said, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, okay, great. Signed the job, drove up there. And before my first show, Ewan McMorrow. Have you heard of Ewan McMorrow?
Yes, yeah.
So Ewan McMorrow, he's my producer. And him and Bobby Haynes sitting there, and Ewan says, right, he says, there's a few things you can't do. I'm like, all right, so I get out my pen and paper, because this is Scotland, this is like a different country. He goes, you can't mention Celtic and Rangers. He said, don't do that, because, there's a big rivalry in Glasgow. And just gave me a list of stuff I couldn't do. And so I'm on the air the next day, first show, first link. So football, right? So we've got Celtic. They're the Catholics, aren't they? And Rangers, they're the Protestants, right? So I need a football team to support. Now, Ewan is there going, oh my! You could see he's just gone white. Katie, my newsreader, is just looking at me like, what the fuck? Within 2 months, right now, the audience loved it. Now, we used to go out every night, and this was during my dark days, so I would go out drinking at night, and then within 2 months, we all trusted each other. And we knew that we were, we wiped the floor. In 2 Ray jars, we kicked Clydesdale. We were number 1 in Scotland. And the audience loved it. They would invite me to football. We were going to the football. I was living beside a Celtic player just to piss Ewan off. And Ewan had a Rangers shrine in the studio, So anyway, we do this. Katie used to, we used to go out at night, and Katie used to book people for the next morning. So I used to, go on at 7 and go, who's coming in today? And Katie go, I don't know. I can't read my writing. It's somebody. We used to have granddads coming in, singing karaoke, people that she met on the streets doing really visual magic. But it was amazing. So one day we decided that Katie should go out with a bunch of listeners, and it was Katie Topping's Big Girls Night Out. So she went and she got 10 listeners, and they went to the bars in Glasgow, and they had a great old time. Then it was time for Robin Banks' Big Boys Night Out. And guess what? Girls can come. Yeah. So I decide, right, you know what? Forget Scotland. Now, the Glasgow airport was right there, and we looked where you could fly to from Glasgow airport. You can fly to bloody Germany. Let's go to Germany. So we went to Frankfurt, right? So we start drinking. We're getting rat-assed. And we're on the plane, got a bunch of listeners. They're all getting drunk, and we get to Germany. Now, I don't know whether you've ever been to Frankfurt, but the airport is about 10 or 15 miles away from Frankfurt itself. And there's an autobahn. So we have our own bus, and I'm sitting at the back of the bus. And the listener, we're still drinking. And John, I really need to go to the toilet. I need to go to the toilet. So I go to the bus driver. I walk up the bus. And I go, I'm really sorry, I need to go to the toilet. And he doesn't understand me, and I'm, pointing down, going, I need to go to the toilet. And he goes, no. So I go to Katie, I go, Katie, I'm going to wet myself. So she speaks a bit of German. So she goes up, speaks a bit of German. She comes back, she goes, look, we can't stop on this road. So I'm sitting there, and we've got enough empty, litre bottles, John. So I get this litre bottle of water that's empty, and I sit at the back and I go, guys, I'm really sorry about this, and I go to the toilet in this bottle. And with the bottle, I then put the bottle behind the seat, so it is behind the back seat, up against the window. And all the listeners are like, "Way!" It's highly disgusting. Anyway, we get to Frankfurt, we go out at night, we're doing the show live the next day from this radio station. So we get to the radio station. John, all hell breaks loose in the radio station. So we arrive. Katie refuses to go on the radio and do her news until I have one of those flashing yellow lights like the German newsreader has. All my listeners, right? There's about 15 listeners. They're all coming back. They're slowly coming into the studio. They're all drunk. They've been out all night. The German staff at this radio station, I swear to you, they're in suits, they're in ties, and they're looking. And the PD has got our show, and he's got it piped around the radio station. He's sitting in his office, and he calls me in afterwards, and he goes, "Do you guys do this every morning?" I'm like, "Yeah, every morning we do that." He goes, "How do you do it?" I'm going, "It's just have fun. If you can have fun with your team, it's not like work." Anyway, we fly back to Scotland. And the next day we're on the air, and Katie does a news story about urine, and it's just been found to be really good for certain things. So I whack up the mic and I go, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, it's in the army they use it on the back of their boots, I've heard, and it's got lots of medicinal qualities." And she says to me, she goes, "Robin, would you drink your own urine if you had to?" And I go, "Yeah, of course I would." And she goes, "Right." So underneath her desk, she goes, "What?" And she goes, he gets this bottle, and she slaps it down on the desk, and she goes, "There you go." She goes, "I was disgusted with you yesterday." She then recounts the story of me going for a pee. And the phone lines are going, and I'm answering lines, and these punters are going, "Robin, she's got you, mate. She's got you." She goes, "Robin, I was so disgusted with you you've got to drink this. And I'm like, but I'm not drinking my own urine on the air. And the callers are ringing up going, Robin, you've got to. She's got you. She's got your hook, line, and sinker. So I go, all right then, for the radio bit. So I reach across and I grab that bottle and take a swig of it, massive swig, and I go, ah! Oh. And she goes, oh, mate, she says, this is Katie. Katie, I love you if you're listening. Katie says to me, she goes, Robin, do you honestly think I would get your urine and bring it back through customs and keep it for 24 hours in my house and then bring it to you just to do this bit on the air? I'm like, well, that's what I thought. That's what you said. She goes, no. I goes, well, whose is it? She goes, it's mine. I did it at 5 o'clock this morning. And mate, do you know what? I looked at her and it was that moment that I went, yes, this is fucking, yes, this is it. She was an absolute, and that show was just, amazing. And I remember when Capital bought the radio station, I just knew that's me gone, because Richard Park just hated my guts, basically.
Was there a reason why you hated your guts?
I don't know why. When I was on XFM, I used to go up to him and say, let's do an air check. And we used to sit down through stuff. And his words to me were more sex. I want more sex on the show. And I remember saying to my co-host at the time, no, because we have to work on the radio again. And this was the days when I was there, Tom Binns was doing the morning show. And it was quite smutty. I think XFM has never really known what it was doing. So no, I just think my time at XFM was been and gone, and I got offered this job on Beat 106 doing breakfast. Basically a quasi national radio show in Scotland, and it just. It just kicked off. Like I said, within 2 radio books, we were number 1.
There are a couple of other stories, which I will just give you the headlines, and I would like you to share them on Crunch and Roll.
Right, what you got? I'm
just going to say Jay-Z.
Oh, mate. So, Jay-Z, Mr. Jay-Z, when I was at Kiss 100, he came in once, and he's brilliant. He's absolutely fantastic. And he came in on the air, and he was just amazing. He was all his bodyguards. He came into the studio as me and Jay-Z and Millie, my co-host, and it was great. So about 6 months later, he's coming in again. Now, I had a boss at that time called Andrew Jeffries. I don't know whether you've come across Andrew Jeffries.
Yes, the Duracell bunny.
Now, can I just say, at this time, I would like to put out there, I was an absolute dick. Right, and I don't know how people worked with me. Sometimes I was an absolute idiot. Now, I didn't like Andrew Jeffries. He, told me how to do radio. So anyway, I didn't like him. How dare someone tell me how to do it? So Jay-Z came in, and Jay-Z is the head man. He's I don't know what you call it in America. He's the president of Rockefeller Records. So I say to Jay-Z, I said, Jay, you're the boss. You've come in here as the boss of a company. He goes, yeah, Robin, yeah. He said, now, I got to tell you, I said, my boss, Andrew, knew that you were coming in. I said, do you know where he is? And Jay-Z went, oh, he's obviously here to meet me. I went, no. I said, he's gone home. And Jay-Z, he was just brilliant. And sometimes you have guests that just know what to do. They are showbiz. They know what to do. They don't put up walls. They just go, yeah, this is going somewhere, so I'll feed you. He goes, Robin, that's terrible. I go, yes, it is. You would think that the boss of the radio station would be here to meet a fellow boss. And Jay-Z's like, yeah, man, that's just so disrespectful. I go, tell you what we'll do. We'll fucking call him. Now, I knew that Andrew Jeffries is on a train back to Brighton, because he lived in Brighton. So I called his mobile. Ring, ring. Hi. Jay-Z just takes over. Is that Andrew? It's Jay-Z here. Oh, and you just hear it in Andrew's voice. Oh. Oh, man. Let me tell you, right? So Andrew Jeffries hated my guts after that, but he didn't last too long. There was another boss of mine at XFM. Speaking of Andrew, as a guy, I love this man, Andrew Phillips. Can I just say, Andrew Jeffries, I have, years ago, I got in contact with him, and I made my amends with him as part of my steps and, making amends with people.
Good on you.
So I've got nothing against Andrew Jeffries now, and I know that, it wasn't him, it was me. So Andrew Phillips. So I have a co-host at XFM, Melinda Lawler, and she was brilliant. She was really, really good. And we're on the air, we're telling stories, and Melinda's going out for a date, single girl, and she's telling me on the air, she has a 3-date rule. She's not going to, sleep with anyone until after the 3rd date. So she goes out with this guy, date 1, and we're counting down, 1st date, 2nd date, then it's 3rd date. So I say to Melinda, it's 3rd date. I mean, are you gonna, are you and him gonna do the nasty tonight? She goes, I'll tell you tomorrow. It's like, all right. Anyway, so next day comes, 4 o'clock comes, 4:10, first link. Melinda, 3rd date. You had it last night. You got a 3-date rule. What happened? She goes, I'm not telling you, Robin. I'm like, come on. That's just awful. You've got to tell us. Anyway, she doesn't. She refuses to tell us. Anyway, she goes out to make a cup of tea between the songs. So I barricade the studio door, whack up the mics, and go, right. I go down her bag. I get her mobile phone. I get the guy who she's went out on a date with. I call him up live on the air. And I go, so 3rd date, blah, blah, blah. What happened? Anyway, all I hear is... Melinda, eventually, when I've done this great bit of radio, I think, what a dick. Melinda comes in, she goes, I'm never working with you again. Never working with you again. So she storms out. So, of course, I go on the air and I tell people, this is what's happened, or what should I do? I try and get in contact with my boss, Andrew Phillips, at the time, and he's also on a train, and I can't get through to him. So I'm trying to call Melinda on the air, can't get through to her. Try to call Andrew, my boss, on the air, can't get through to him, with what can I do? And the radio part of my brain is going, no, this is drama, this is just great. Anyway, so I decide, I tell you what I'll do, I'll call Andrew Phillips' house. He might be at home. His kid answers, and it's Andrew's 11-year-old son. So I go, look, I say, listen, you're the closest thing to my boss as I can get. And so I explained to him what's happened. I said, what should I do? And he gives me he goes, he knows women. This 11-year-old knows women. He goes, mate, he said, stop calling her. He says, stop calling her because, it's before 7 o'clock. You finish at 7. She knows it's for the radio if it's before 7. She goes, stop calling her. He said, do you like this girl? I said, yeah, I really like her. She's my buddy. And he goes, do you feel bad? Yeah, I feel bad. He goes, look, it's not the fact you asked her or you spoke to the guy. He said, it's the fact that you went down her handbag. I'm like, oh my God, yeah. He goes, you never, ever go down a woman's handbag. Anyway, so I hang up the phone from him, finish the show, come into work the next day, and Andrew Phillips calls me into his office. Oh man, he gives me a bollocking. He's screaming at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm going, Andrew, just for a second. I said, I'll take the bollocking, just for a second. I said, didn't it sound great? Wasn't your son brilliant? I said, and he goes, you had my son on the air. You went over the line. You did this, blah 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 blah. Andrew Phillips is also the man who, because I used to work with Carl Pilkington long before Carl was on the television. In fact, I was in the meeting where Andrew Phillips said to Carl, he said, stop talking on Ricky Gervais's show, just drive the desk. And Carl didn't listen to him. But if you go to Andrew Phillips' website now, I mean, if you do it now, in the blurb of the website, he's actually, I'm the guy who found Carl Pilkington. No, you fucking didn't. I was in the meeting. So anyway, many years later, I meet Andrew Phillips, and Andrew comes over to me and he goes, mate, I've got to tell you. He goes, what? He goes, that bit of radio, do you remember when you had my son on the air? I go, yeah. He goes, mate, it was fucking great. He goes, I loved it. He said, I got it on tape and I loved it. I've still got it. And I'm like, Andrew, I gave you just a second. I actually said, just give me a second just for me to say it was good, wasn't it? Just for you to go, yes, it was. and then continue the bollocking. I said, you didn't do it. He goes, mate, it was great. But I realised then, John, and it's something that when you are single and you're not married, you're just renting, it's different to when you have bills to pay, when you're married, when you have a child, when you have children and you're in radio, when you have a mortgage, and that guy, he's got a few kids, he's married, the most important thing is not some shitty radio show that's called his son. It's him keeping his job. And the most important thing, and I realise that now, I realised it not that long afterwards, that, you can do what you want on the radio. And it's good fun. And we can, go on the Crunch and Roll podcast and talk about drinking urine. Oh, isn't that funny? But do you know what? The most important thing is your family, and radio and being a radio presenter, it's just a job. We're actors, and sometimes you've got to pull it back. And I hear radio presenters now, and they're trying to push it, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Stop. You haven't got the foundations to push it like that. Great radio presenters, they can talk about anything. Mark Story once told me, and I say this when I'm coaching, I did this link, and I had an air check session with Mark Story, and I talked about lesbians, and he stopped the tape and he went, no. He said, never say lesbian. And I'm like, but why? He says, too aggressive on the radio. Say women who love other women. Everybody will know what you're talking about, but you won't get the complaints. And I've taken that, and you can talk about anything on the radio. You can talk about anything, as long as you do it and you use the correct words, and you can do it. People will, mate, I'm in the Middle East, and I've been doing a breakfast radio show and getting away with some shit here that, people go, how do you get away with this? And I go, what? We're not talking, it's your mind. I can tell you about every bit what it's about, and it's not what you're thinking. Now, I know it is. You know it is. You know that I know that it is. I know that you know that I know that it is. But, it takes work. It takes work not to be fired. It takes work to have an out. It takes work to do, especially nowadays when you've got people who will complain about anything. And I think it all, it started with, well, it didn't actually. Which came first? Was it the Andrew Sachs thing with Jonathan Ross? Or was it I think the Australian nurse came after it, did it?
I would have thought that was the right order, yes.
I remember reading about these two Australian presenters. I remember exactly where I was. It was Oxford Street, coming up Oxford Circus tube station. And I remember reading in the paper that these two Australian crazy radio personalities had got through and spoke to the maternity ward, and they were the front page. John, I swear to you, and I tell this to people, I go, I remember thinking, oh my God, what a simple and great radio bit. What a freaking brilliant radio bit. Oh my God. And they didn't actually get through. And then the news came out that nurse, bless her, had committed suicide, and they were blamed. And the nurse that committed suicide wasn't even the one that they spoke to her at the beginning. She's the one that put the call through. Yeah. And then they both, didn't work for 2 years. They were split. Geez, mate, you just don't know. That's why you don't hear wind-up calls on the radio anymore. The wind-up calls used to be great, but people will complain about anything and everything, and it's so easy now to go on social media and did you hear? And then all of a sudden there's 60 comments, 59 of them are people that didn't hear it but are bloody outraged.
Do you know what, Robin? I'm kind of glad that you've changed the mood, and rightly so. But I just want to talk about a moment that I remember at BRMB when you filmed the local news. There was a news story about you being an ex-addict, and I remember before your show, about 6 o'clock at BRMB, we all gathered around the TV to watch the news, and I always wondered why you were upset.
So, right, okay, I'm going to tell you this, and hopefully you won't laugh at the end of it. But it was the local news. So yeah, you're right, 6 o'clock, and they came in, I think, the day before, because I was back on the radio, and this addict who was in rehab, drinking drugs. And they did this, I did this before I went to rehab. I mean, I completely screwed my career up. And I went to, after Kiss 100 got rid of me, I went to Galaxy, and James Brownlow there offered me a job, and he said, oh, come on up and do I think it was a Sunday show or Saturday show in the afternoon. And we'll put you up in the Malmaison Hotel. Mate, I drove from my house. I went to my dealer, got 4 grams of coke. I thought, that'd be all right. I didn't book into the hotel till 6 o'clock that morning. I'm on the air in a few hours. Tried to get some sleep, couldn't sleep, drank the minibar dry, then went on the air for about an hour, had blackout. I can just remember him coming up to me with my expensive bit of equipment that I bring everywhere and giving it to me. And then I go back to my car. I get in my car. My agent is ringing me going, what the hell's happened? I'm not answering my phone, apart from the one phone call I make to my dealer to get more drugs. What an idiot. Then I thought, I've got to save my career. What will save my career? I've used every single excuse. I know, I'll go to rehab. That'll sound great. So I called this rehab place in Spain. And I said, look, here's my credit card number. Take all the money now. So I have to go. Because I know that when I wake up tomorrow morning and I'm sober, I won't need you, and it's fine. So, I got back. I did my rehab. I think this is my 15th year. I'm one of these addicts that doesn't count how long I've been sober, but I think it's my 15th year.
Yeah.
2007, July 2007 is when I went into rehab. And when I got the job at BRMB, the news came and wanted to do one of these little sort of 6-minute features, which is fine. I don't mind. It'll promote the show, promote the radio station, and I don't mind talking about it. So I spoke about it. The reason why I was upset is, I don't know whether you remember, but at the beginning, and what TV people tend to do is they tend to dramatize everything up. So instead of just, going straight into the interview, they had this voiceover with he was in rehab and he nearly screwed his life up and he spent £50,000 in the last year. And they had a hand, wasn't my hand, chopping up lines of cocaine.
Yeah.
Now, Paul Kay was beside me, my boss at the time, our boss at the time, and he goes, what's wrong, Robin? Because I was shaking my head, and I was, like you said at the beginning, I was upset. And I went, oh, God, look at the size of those lines. They're tiny. That is not. My ones were 4 times as big as that. I don't want anyone seeing that. What the hell? So that, John, is why I was upset at that news story.
Well, there's nothing wrong with testing. The dealer does a lot of work in order to...
Well, I'm all for being open-minded, but I'm not all for discussing this live on air, thank you.
We are profoundly sorry.
Oh, yeah.
We're coming to the end now, Robin, and it's been amazing. It's been, but it's just been lovely to speak to you. There's a couple of stories that I want to share about you. Firstly is the first time that I met you, which I briefly mentioned before.
So can I just say, this must have been during my drink and drug days.
Yeah.
Now, I have lots of people going, do you remember when I met you? And I'm like, I have no... JK and Joel have some amazing stories that, they stole my clothes from a hotel once. I had to go naked into Kiss 100. Anyway, here we go. Here's one to add to the list.
We have a mutual friend who is called Pam Hargreaves.
Oh, Pam, yes.
And I loved her, and we were good friends, and I know that she worked with you at Kiss, and
she was great. Brilliant.
Yeah, she was great. A beautiful human being. Anyway, so she came up, when I was at Viking, she came up to me and said, well, who would you like to meet? And I was talked about how much I love Kiss. And I said, I've always wanted to meet Robin Banks. And she went,
no.
Don't you worry about that, because I'm really good friends with him.
John, can I just interject? Was this at one of our sort of EMAP awards parties?
EMAP Awards.
Mate, I was screwed.
EMAP Awards in Sheffield. And
was this the award ceremony that I thought it was a good idea to wear a shell suit?
Yes.
There we are.
But as Pam led me off by the hand, we met at just outside the toilets. And for some reason, you spent quite a bit of time in there, Robin.
There's a surprise. Yeah, exactly.
and I met you, and you were dribbling, and that was it. And I was like, wow. I said to Pam, is there any chance I could meet Bam Bam? And look, just one more story. This, I just want to set people who listen to this, and you've said it a couple of times. I haven't said it, and you've said that people thought you were a dick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to be honest, Robin. I can
concur. They were right. Goodbye, Robin.
No. Because I always, because people often say to me, "What is Robin Banks like?" And I set them straight. I say, look, when he's on air, he's playing Robin Banks, and it's nuts. And he makes Theo the Greek drink piss, and he puts signs on the back of people's cars. He does crazy stuff, right? That's Robin Banks. But I remember, and I always share this story with my eldest Rosie. She wasn't well. She had a febrile convulsion, which is just a horrific thing to go through as a parent, but it's very, very common. And you messaged me as yourself, and you were so sweet and caring that I will never forget that. So for that, Robin Banks, I love you for that.
Oh, mate. Do you know, my wife, I remember when I got back into radio from rehab, and I knew I wasn't going to get back into radio. And I started a company. I started a couple of companies, took one on, don't want to mention it, but took one on Dragon's Den and got more money than we asked for. Anyway, so I got back into radio, and and we moved to Leicester to do the breakfast show on Leicester Sound. And I said to my wife, I went, look, don't tell anyone what I do. Don't tell anyone what I do. Because when I go out at night, she didn't understand why I would never tell anyone what I did. She goes, but you got to be proud of it. You got to be proud of what you do. And she lasted a year, John. And then she came back from work one day and she went, I now know why you don't tell anyone what you do. And I went, what happened? She went, well, they were talking about you in the office, what you were doing this morning. And I was so proud of you. I said, that's my husband. And I went, and then it started. She goes, yes, it did. She goes, people I've never met before were coming up to me, asking me this, oh my God. So, yeah, it is. We are actors, we are actors. And that's why, the Robin Banks that we've just spent the last while talking about on the radio is not the same actor Robin Banks who's been doing a breakfast show in the Middle East for the last 6 years. I remember people going, when they found out that I was, coming to Oman to do a radio show and run this radio station, people going, what the hell is he doing? He's not going to last a week. Here I am 6 years later. I remember when I took over at Star up in the northeast, this little radio station, which is actually quite a big radio station, and we had no budget, and this radio station had been screwed with over the years so many times, and so I had to, with zero budget, I had to tell the audience and make a shake-up in the area that this radio station was changing. So I did, I came up with this idea, and there was a part of me that just went, yeah, I've just come up with this idea, let's do it. But it's thought about. Each little thing is thought about, but it's how you play it out, like an actor plays it out. And we did 10 formats in 10 days, and people thought we were crazy. And, the first radio after it, we got record figures. The second one after it, we got record figures. And they fired me the next day, mate. After that.
Well, let's just finish on where you are now then, Robin. So are you happy where you are now?
Oh, mate, do you know what? 15, 20 years ago, I think, when you saw presenters that would leave the UK and go to the Middle East, and I was one of these people that couldn't make it in British radio. It's gone to the Middle East. I think that changed. Obviously, presenters who came out here 20 years ago couldn't make it in British radio. But I think in the last sort of 15, 10 years, the whole, radio in the Middle East, and yourself, networking, there are some amazing presenters back in the UK now who can't get jobs. You've got 5-time Sony Award winner Tim Shaw, not on the radio. What? The guy is an absolute genius. But it's easier to shut up and play the music and talk about, what X Factor was on last night. than actually doing it. So yeah, I'm really, really happy where I am now. I'm at High FM, which is a CHR, a top 40 radio station in Oman. We're about to open a new rock station, which is great, and I'm heading that up as well. So yeah, I am very happy.
Well, Robin, I'm overjoyed that you're so happy. You deserve it because you are a beautiful human being, and I would like to thank you for not just recording Crunch and Roll with us this afternoon, but for being a great mate as well, Robin.
Mate, thank you so much. That's really nice, and it's been an honour to be on the Crunch and Roll podcast. Is that right? It is Crunch and Roll I'm doing now, isn't it?
Robin Banks, everyone! Legend.
Woo! I'm clapping myself. You have been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, Robin Banks. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app to get every new episode as soon as it drops, you lucky thing. Crunch and Roll is a 969 media production presented by the one and only John Fox and made to sound half decent in the edit afterwards by Simon Bosowski. He is sorry. Oh, yeah. And do you know who I was talking about? No, it was